Record. Oh, okay.
Good.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll get started. We are today going to be doing Reish Ayin Vav, Sif, Beis, and Gimel. Hashem. A lot of stuff here. A lot to talk about. All right. The Torah, Reish Ayin Vav Beis says, Yisrael v'goyim she'sebu yachad v'hidliku goy haner. Yerov goyim mutar l'shtamish l'oroi sheletzarach harov hidlik. If it's rov goyim, then we say l'tzarach harov hidlik. Yerov Yisrael or fil mechza mechza aser elim ken yesh hachacha sheletzarach goyim hidlika. So mechza mechza, the Gemara comes in Wisconsin is like rov, that we're not sure about mechza mechza, so machmir, it's considered like rov Yisrael. So there's no chiluk between those two. And therefore, it's only going to be usher if it's rob or mechza mechza, unless you have a chacha, which we have the hachacha in the Gemara, the Ma'aseh Shmuel, that the guy started reading from himself from Shtar. That was the hachacha that he wanted it for himself. So now the Beis Yosef learns that this is the Shitas Rush that says that even if it's rov Yisrael, hachacha helps. And the Beis Yosef has been died from Rashi that the Rashi Kasav about Goy v'Yisrael v'Amalek Atzam Mishtamish L'Ora Vada Iker Daita Didei became the near le'echad near the Mea Shari. Yirmi Devarov Ad Kam LaSharin Ela B'Mechza Mechza Dumi Yisrael V'Goy Denaka about Rov Yisrael Olam Aser. Rabbi Hamagid Mishtapek possessed. So the Beis Yosef seems to have two chedushim over here. That first of all, he's medayik from Shitas Rashi. It's not so clear what his diuk really is. From Rashi, says, looking back at the words of Rashi, to say not like the Rush. Meaning, the diuk seems to be from the fact that it says Goy v Yisrael. It's mashma that it's only when it's half and half, when it's a level playing ground over here, it's evenly distributed between Jews and Goyim, then we say that the Kriya or the Hachacha helps the Goy to Machriya, only when it's half and half. Mashenken, if it was more, then not that way. And the svara for that would be that the Lashon of Rashi by us is, Rashi says Rashi first of all said before by Nechza by the Merchatz. So Rashi said there. So Rashi there said a lashon suffix. There he said lashon suffix, and also in Amud Beis he says. Hilkach Yisrael Iker Mechza Nami Lika Lamika Alada Milsa. Dika Lamemar Iker Daite Demadlik Bishul Yisrael. Dika Lamemar Iker Daite Demadlik Bishul Nachri. So we're not sure. Maybe if it's half and half, maybe his Iker Das is for the Goyim, maybe the Iker Das is for the Yisrael. So Mechza Rashi learns is a suffix, is a pure suffix. So the Beis Yosef is learning in Pshat and Rashi that when does the Hachacha help? When there's a suffix. Mashenken, if there's a rov, then we say Azlin Basaruba, then we consider it like B'taras and Haga. Rov is always Machriya, everything. Kol Torah Kula. Rov, we say that is Machriya, that we go at Basaruba. We do it for a Beis Din, we do it for Bittul, we do it for many things. We go Basaruba. So that here also, if there's Rov Yisrael there, then it's not considered Begetter Suffolk, the way the Beis Yosef is learning Rashi. When does the Hachacha help? It's machiach when you have a suffix. Now it's machriya what the suffix should be, going this way or that way. But over here, if it's rov, there's no suffix at all, and that's why, according to Rashi, it's aser. It says the Maggid Mishnah is mistapik with that gufa, when it is the makam rov, do we go after the hachacha or not? That's the way he learns Pshat and Rashi. Now it's a little bit of a pella. I mean, Rashi seems to be Soser himself. There's a Rashi in Kuf Nun Aleph will be one of the sugyas that we didn't see that yet. Yeah, we saw that in the Kufin and Aleph. We saw that when we saw Shin Chafei and the sugya of Shin Chafei of Kever, the sugya of Kever over there. And if the Goy made the Kever for Yisrael or for himself or whatever, all those sekos over there. So there the Gemara also brought down the Maisa of the Merchatz, and Mechza over there, the first Lashon of Rashi was Mechza is a suffix, and that's why we're Mekel. But then at the end, there's a Lashon of Basa of Rashi over there, that Rashi said, the Reisha Lokashale came in the Rashi at the end of the Amud Kufan Aleph said, came in the Mechza Vadai Bishvil Yisrael V'Nachrim Hukmu. Shaylola Adam Echad Levada Hukmu. When it was Machamim for the sake of Yisrael and Nachrim, and it's Mechza, then we say it's Vadai for both, because nobody heats up a Merchatz just for one person, or he heats it up for as many people as possible. So if he knows it's going to be Goyim and Yisraelim, then the Pshat in Mechza is Vadai for both. So there seems to be a steer in Rashi that bothered me for a long time. I just saw in the Bir Halacha though recently that the Bir Halacha takas ma'ora this Nakuda and says that the Rashi in our sugya is going like the listen Kama of Rashi in Kufin and Aleph, that Mechza is beget a suffix. But Anachanami, according to the Lishna Basa Rashi, it's not a suffix anymore. It's considered Vadai for both, and that's the reason for the Chumrah. So why do we say Mechza Karov? Why are we Machmer Mechza? So it's now telling these two Lashonos of Rashi. According to Rashi, by us, we're Machmer just because we don't know. So we have a suffix, so we're Machmer. If according to Rashi over there, it's we're Machmer because it's B'Torah's Vada. It's just as Chomer as Rov. Rov we know for sure is considered for the Yisrael. So Mechza also we know that it's for sure for the Yisrael. Only if it's Rov Goyim, then we could say that the Hachra goes the other way, even though there's a number of Yisrael there. But that's really telling, the Havana is telling in these two Lashonos of Rashi. So now the Beis Yosef is talking in Rashi in our sugya. So Beis Yosef is learning, like on our Rashi, that the only reason that the Hachacha helps when you see the guy reading, when he's reading, it's not a total Raya Gebrura that he did it only for himself, mainly for himself, but that's the assumption. We saw in the last couple of times we spoke about the assumption is when a guy does something for himself, then we go bust the Iker HaMaisa. And the assumption is the Iker HaMaisa is when he's being in it, the person himself is always the Iker. That's a klal and just in many things. The person is himself is the most important person in the picture when he's involved himself. Bishlema, when he goes in, he's just a worker and goes and hooks up and he lights a fire for a group of two kinds of people and he's not involved himself, then we say, okay, we go after the rove and mute, whatever. But if it's he himself is one of the people that's being in it, then he becomes number one. He becomes the most important person. That we saw that in the Rishonim. So the Beis Yosef learns that involvement that makes himself number one, and that's Machriya, according to Rashi, is only b'makom Safek, not b'makom Vadai. When you have Rov Yisrael, then it's not considered a Safek, it's considered a Vadai. But according to the Rashi over there, if we still say that Rov is that the person himself is Machriya, and Rashi there and Kufin Aleph is learning that it's Vadai for both of them. Even so, we say that the Ma'aseh of Shmuel was that Shmuel saw the Goy reading it. He still he considered the Goy the Iker, and then he turned his face back around and he was willing to be netted from the Nair. So you see from that Ma'aseh of Shmuel, according to the second Lashon of Rashi, that the Hachacha helps even b'makom Vadai. Even though we took on Vadai, it's for the sake of both of them. So that Vadai is no stronger than a Rov for Yisrael, and if it works over there, it's going to work for Rov as well. So that will be once you have the Rashi over there, perhaps we can bring a Raya back to, and there is two Lashonos of Rashi. I don't know if you can be machriya from that Rashi onto this Rashi, but Al Kapanim from Rashi over there, you see Achra that the Hachacha will help even in the Makam Rov Yisrael. And the Rashba learns in Rashi over here not like the Beis Yosef. He learns that Rashi is matir like the Rush. Even Makam Rov Yisrael is considered Hachacha Gemura. I guess it could be the Nekudas Machlokes between the way the Beis Yosef learns and the Rashba learns. is that the Rashba must be learning that the hachacha over here by the goy being nene is considered a hachacha gemura. It's considered a raya gemura that we no longer have any suffix of who's the ikar. It's a hachacha gemura. But Mashiach, according to the Beis Yosef, the way he learns Rashi, at least the Liba the Rashi, he learns that that the hachacha over here is not a hachacha gemura. It just it alludes to the fact that he's involved, so we make an assumption, but the assumption doesn't work against a vadai, which rov would be a vadai, or a vadai the other way. So, but al kapanim the Maisa, the Beis Yosef's machriya like the Rosh, and in the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Ayin Vav, back into our Sif. It's not really enough to mean the Maisa because the Shulchan Aruch side. It just says, Yisrael v'akum v'hesibu yachad v'hedlik akum near a rov akum muter l'shtam sh'l'orav and rov Yisrael afil mekza aser. If yesh ha'chacha sh'letzarach akum hidlika k'gon she'anu royan sh'l'shtam sh'l'orav af al pi sh'rov Yisrael muter. So Beis Yosef is machriya rov Yisrael as muter, like the Rosh. It doesn't even mention what he holds as Shitas Rashi. He didn't mention that Shita, so I guess he holds that's the Shitas Yachid, because even though he himself holds the Beis Yosef is mistapik in that. I'm sorry, the Maggid Mishnah is mistapik in this, but I guess the suffix of the Maggid Mishnah is not machriya keneged the vadai of the Rosh, and like I said, the Rashba learns that way in Rashi himself. So that's the psak of the Shulchan Aruch, that even if you have Rov Yisrael, if the goy reads the star, then that's enough hachacha that we say that it's mutter. So we're going to have some interesting cases. So first of all, the Taz over here brings down, says that Beis Yosef Kasav, the 1,000 bays, Rav Magin is stapik b'zeh. He's mesupik about this. So what's that going on? So Beis Yosef says it's going on the Rosh. The Rosh's case that says that even Keneged a Rov, we say the Achra helps. Beis Yosef, the Maggid Mishnah is mistapik. He says, "V'lashani mutar afila Rov Yisrael koshkem mechza odilma dafila mechza koshkem berov lo mahani achachav." So the lesson of the Maggid Mishnah was that maybe even by mechza doesn't help. Not only would it not help by Rov, but maybe it doesn't even help by mechza. And he says, "V'chinan hirech morich hamizal l'tzmoal Beis Yosef bezeh shehavin hasafik b'mechza dafka l'fi dasa Beis Yosef zela al daitag." Saying that the Bach has a bigger richos over here against the Beis Yosef, and learns that learns shot in the Beis Yosef that there's a chiluk between Rov and mechza, and the suffix was only on Rov, not on mechza. And he says, meaning the Beis Yosef never was coming to be mechalek between Rov and mechza. Beis Yosef learned, according to the Maggid Mishnah, his suffix was bein berov, bein b'mechza. The shal is, what's the nakuda going on over here? What's this back and forth over here? So the way the Bach himself learns, the Bach has an interesting shot in the sugya. He's saying that there's a whole new shot in the sugya of the Bach, which according to the Pri Megadim, the Taz is really going with that betzim. Also as well, that the suffix of what was the suffix of the Maggid Mishnah was, what's shot in the whole sugya? What was the shot in the Maisa of Shmuel? What are we machriya when we say that there's a hachacha? Is it like we understood it till now, even if let's say you have 50 Jews and 50 goyim, and the goy comes in, lights something, or this, and we have this achra, and who adin, it's considered achra according to the Rosh, even if you have 60 Jews and 40 goyim, so it's a Rov Yisrael, still the goy reads the stars, so we say it's mutter because we go connected the Rov. Or perhaps, and this is the way that the Bach learns in the Maggid Mishnah, which is very interesting, that the Hachra that we had, the Maisa Shmuel, was only said not in a general case of mechza, only when there's one Jew and one goy. That's the mechza over here. It was only said in B'chiyah Gavna. All Hachra was only said that Shalos, who's the ikra over here? That when this goy comes and lights it, Shmuel's in the room, Goy lights it, Shmuel turns around. And then he turns around and sees the Goy's reading. Oh, okay, the Goy's reading. So all there is the Goy and the Jew. Only then do we say that it's machriya, that the kriya is machriya. But if you have a number of people, so then we don't have community between rov or mechza, because when you light for a number of people, then for sure you're lighting for all those people. You're not coming to light just for yourself. A person doesn't, like, there's only so far a person could say that he's the ikr. So bishlema, if there's him and one other guy, then we say the ikr maisa is for himself. If he did it and he's nene, we say he's the ikr. But you lit light in a room when you turn the light on or whatever, there's 100 people in the room, and then the guy who lit it also reads something. So then that's the suffix of the Maggid Mishnah, the way the Bach learns. In that case, also, do you still say that he's the ikr, or the whole shiloh of ikr and tafel falls off when there's a number of people over there? So the words of the Maggid Mishnah never said the word rov. The way that the Beis seem to understand is the Maggid is when he says when there's the Maggid declares a shiloh if there's kama Yisrael. The word kama Yisrael. So the Prima Governor explains that the Taz is coming on, the box really going on, is that word kama Yisrael. Does kama Yisrael mean, the way the Beis Yosef understood it, kama means a lot, means sometimes we say kama, just a way of saying many, many. Or is the word kama Yisrael, doesn't mean rov, it just means there's more than just the two of them. It means there's a number of people involved. And that's really the suffix of the Maggid Mishnah. Do we say this hachra of rov? There is no chiluk, and achanami. There's no chiluk between rov and metzah. But the shaila is in the Maggid Mishnah because they're learning that metzah is like the lishna of Basta Rashi. That we say it's vadai for everybody. Metzah means it's vadai for both halves. But the shaila is even in the case where it's vadai for both halves, do we still say that he's machriya, his Hishtamshus of the guy that lit it, he's machriya or not? So that's really the elemental shiloh going on over here. That's the way the Taz is learning Bechina and Dakak, that the Beis Yosef never meant to be machalach between rov and metzah. He meant to be machalach between many and just the two of them. That was the suffix of the Maggid Mishnah. So, but all this is negiyat of shot in the Maggid Mishnah, but Lamaisa, we have a psak of the Shulchan Aruch that even in the most extreme case, when you have rov Yisrael, we still go like the Achra, the Rush, which is the most makel of all. Now the Rush comes out to be mamish the most makel of everybody, that the Rush is being makel even when it's many people and it's rov Yisrael. So you do have 60 Jews and 40 Goyim, and the Goy himself read the star. Then that's the achra of the rush and the Maggid and the Shulchan Aruch Lamaisa, that even in that situation we still go after we say the ikar maisa was for the individual. So we're just taking this concept of the person who lit it himself, that he's nene from, that he becomes the ikar. According to the rush, we take that the furthest, more than anybody else. We take that so far to say even when there's a room full of people, he still remains the ikar. The ikar tachlis is for his own halakha and his own hana. And we're meko. That's the psak of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. So now, the Magen Avram in Vov seems to take issue with this whole mahalach. Perhaps, maybe it's not really taking so much issue with it, but we'll talk it through and see how it come out. Magen Avram is a very short Magen Avram, but it's there's a lot here to talk about. Magen Avram Vav says that when there's what the Shulchan Aruch says, if there's a chacha that was done with tzarach akum, he says, "Well, im asa the tzarach shnehem aser." If it was done for the sake of both, then it's usher. Then it's usher. Like, and what's the situation over there? Over there was Tafkut Tesvav in Hilchos Yom Tov, where the goy brought peiros. We have an issue over there to if peiros are brought, called davar sheminu mechuber, anything that has mechuber to it, like it possibly was picked on Yom Tov b'Isser, like apples. He brings them to the city for the sake of goyim and Jews. It's for the sake of both of them. Then it's usher. That's the case over there. So then, hu adin over here, if it was done l'tzarech shneim, it's usher. If you lit the candle for the sake of both, like in other words, the Magen Rambam's learning is that we have a suffix who was really lit for. We're not really sure. So if we're not sure, then he did it himself. He did the hachacha, the tzarech akum. So then it's mutter. But if we know for sure that it was l'tzarech shneim, if we know that, even if he's nana himself, but it was l'tzarech shneim, then it's taka usher, similar to over there. So the Aruch HaShulchan has a taina, and other achronim as well, on the Magen Avram. You can't bring a raya from over there. Over there, by in Tafkut Tesvav, we're talking about davar sheminu mechuber. Over there, there's a shaykhus of shema yarba b'shvilo. If you're going to do it l'tzarech shneim, if you're bringing it for goyim and Jews, then you're bringing more peiros than you would have brought if it's just for the goyim. So if you were malakat those on Yom Tov, if you picked them for the tree on Yom Tov, then you did more malacha than you would have done otherwise for the goyim you did for the sake of the Jews. So there was a ribui shiurim for the sake of Jews if you did l'tzarech shneim. That's the ma'isa in Tafkut Tesvav. Now Shenkin over here, we say ner le'echad ner le'mea. If you lit this one ner for the l'tzarech shneim, and even there's a chacha, you want it for yourself, but it was also l'tzarech shneim. It was also for the Jews. So once you become the ikar, there's no ribui shiurim by lighting a ner. The Gemara already said ner le'echad ner le'mea. We said that by a ner. We said it by a kevish. There's certain things like to get down from the ship, in the case of the kevish, and there's certain things that are shaykh by a ribui shiurim, like we're machalik there between a ner and and bringing water, havas mayim or malaket asavim, all those things. There's a shaykhus ribui shiurim. So then by such things, then the tzarech shneim should be usher because there's a problem with shemi yirabe, or he was marbe betzim, but not shenkin near lechan elamea. So that's a taina on the Magen Avram. So yeah, the Aruch HaShulchan says further that Aruch HaShulchan, if you want to see it inside, there's a couple pieces. It's in our Siman. Let's see where it is. I believe it's in Hay. I'm sorry, maybe Ches. Let me see if I can find where it is. Yeah, it's Hay. Sorry, it's Hay. There's another Aruch HaShulchan in Ois Tes. This Agavorche, it's negate to this also. He says that if the ikr is for Yisrael, like let's say he does it in the base Yisrael, the goy is working in the house of the Jew. So he says even though the goy he does it for the sake of Yisrael, but then he does a harama, he does like a trickery to pick up a book and read something to show that it's for him. So he says if the harama is mitzad the goy, then it doesn't help. Because it's clear that it's for the sake of the Yisrael, even though he got a little bit of hana from it. He took a letter out of his pocket and read it. He goes into the Jew's house. The Jew's sitting in the dark. He turns the light on for him, and then to make it okay, he reads something a little bit. So then that's clearly harama mitzad the goy, and that's usher. But he says he remembers Bialduso when he was a child. It was a common thing to do harama mitzad the Yisrael. Let's say if they're in the dark. The shoes are sitting in the dark, and you go out and see a goy in the street. You say, "Would you like us a little glass of Bronfen?" So the guy, sure, love it. Says, "Okay, it's in here. It's in here in this dark room. It's all hard. I can't find it right now. With the the lights over here. And so the goy turns it on, takes a drink of the broth, give him a l'chaim, and or give him whatever, and then the goy leaves. So it's harama mitzad the Yisrael that he brought the goy in to do that. He said that's totally mutter, because the goy, he doesn't know about the harama. He just knows he wants his schnapps. So harama, the trickery mitzad the Jew, is okay because the goy's maisa is done for his own sake. He didn't care about the Jews right now. Mashenkin, if the goy is coming ikr for the Jew, the harama the other way, the goy does the harama. He says that's usher, because you have to always look at the ikr maisa. Al it comes out of Yisodis Tekam Machlokas between the Magen Avraham and the Aruch HaShulchan. If it was Asad l'Shneim, the Aruch HaShulchan he slugs up the raya from Tafkut Tes Vav, says no raya from there, and therefore when by the case of by us by Ner L'Echad Ner L'Mea, even if it's Tzarech Shneim, you know for sure was for the Jew also, as long as the goy is also nana from it, like you have a goy and a Jew, and he's be'emes being nana from it. The fact that it's also for the Jew does not make it usher. Whereas according to the Magen Avraham, it is usher. So it's a very sort of stakam machlokas. The Mishnah Brura in Ois Tes Zayin, he brings the 2 days. Let's see, read the lashon. Yeah, this whole shaila of that really goes back to the Rashi and the Rishonim, whether we say that it was mechza, do we say that it was for sure for both of them, or do we say that it was a suffix? So if it was for sure for both of them and it becomes for rov, then rov is machriya even connected when it's for the sake of both. So we see that the tzarech shneim is going to be mutter, as long as the goy is the ikr. So Rashi says, mechza, hatam, why are we machmer general the mechza? Rashi says, Mishnah Brura says, in Tes Zayin, hatam mishum daleka lamekim ala demilsa, in b'shul enu Yehudi, avid or b'shul Yisrael avid. First shot is, we're not sure what mechza is. We're not sure. Therefore, if the goy is nena, then now we are sure. So it's not for the Jew and it is for the goy. So that will come out to be, but if we know for sure that it's for both of them, it's usher. So he brings la halacha, the other pshat would be like Rashi and Kufnan Aleph, and like the other Rishonim seem to be learning, that it's considered for sure l'tzarech shneim when it's mechza. Even so, the hachra works. So you see that even though it's l'tzarech shneim, if the goy is being in it, it's still going to be mutter. So this machlokas, the Magen Avraham and the Aruch HaShulchan seems to be telling this machlokas Rashi, the two lashonos of Rashi by us, if it's a suffix or if it's a vada, and even so, we say that the achra helps. It will just come out there to be a chiddush now that when I'll throw out a shaila to you. When you say mechza, like Rashi says, vada l'shneim, maybe this is really what the Magen Avraham and the Aruch HaShulchan is really telling on what I'm going to say now. Maybe not on Machlokas Rishonim. Maybe it's totally in this shaila. When you say mechza, according to the second lashon of Rashi, and the way the Rashba learns, and the way the Rush learns, that it's for sure l'tzarech shneim. Even so, when the goy does it for his nene from it, we say that he becomes the ikr. So when he becomes the ikr, does that mean that it's really being done just for the goy? And the fact that it was the mechza, there was vadai for shneim, it falls off? Or do we say, no, really it remains l'tzarech shneim. It's still also for the Jew. It's for the goy, that didn't change. It's just that even though it's also for the Jew, but ikr is for the goy. So if you learn like the first way that it has to fall off, then the tzarech Yisrael has to fall off to make it mutar. So then if you know for sure it remains also for the Jew, it doesn't help the fact that it's all for the goy. And that's shot in Magen Avraham. It says l'tzarech shneim is usher. Even if the goy is also nena, if it remains l'tzarech the yid also, then it's taka usher. Whereas according to the Aruch HaShulchan, no, that even if it is l'tzarech shneim, but if the goy becomes the ikr, then that's still machriya, even though it's also for the Jew. I think it's a important shiloh, and that seems to be their machlokas. Now the Mishnah Berurah and Sivkot and Yud Zayin seems to go like the Magen Avram. He says, Yud Zayin, he says, "L'tzorach in Yehudi, Ratzalomar l'tzorach atzmo," does it for himself. Hu adinim yesh hachacha shehidlik b'shel eza enu Yehudi acher, whether it's a hachacha for himself or for another Jew. Im anu yodim she'asu gamish for Yisrael. If we know it's for both, we know it's also for the Yisrael. Aser can't custom Magen Avram. I'm Bir Halacha. Now, there's just a klal you should know in the Mishnah Berurah. This is from Yaakov Kamenetsky. That's all writes that when the Mishnah Berurah, generally when he quotes it in the name of someone, he just usually he says a psak, and then in the Sharat Sion he tells the makar. But when he brings the makar within the Mishnah Berurah, so he's not necessarily paskin in that way. He's letting you know there's that shita. Okay. So and here it's clear like that. He says, "Ken kasam Magen Avram, v'ayim Bir Halacha she'rachnu b'zeh." Look in the Bir Halacha. So the Bir Halacha, he writes a great arichos, a very long Bir Halacha here about this. I'll try to just say a couple of nakudas that he says that he brings down b'shem other achronim the same kasha, the Aruch HaShulchan, in the name of the Nishmas Adam and others, Eli Rabba, that they're cholik on the Magen Avram, and they hold that if it's the Yisrael and the Goy, if the Goy is the Iker, it's mutter, even though you know it's the Sor Shneim. Because this is, the Sor Shneim should be no better than Rov Yisrael. We said the Shulchan Aruch paskins, if it was Rov Yisrael, and the Goy was nana from it, it's still mutter. So Rov Yisrael, then the way they're learning, at least, I don't know if the Magen Avram has done this way, but they're learning that when it's Rov Yisrael, for sure it remains for the sake of Yisrael also. And even so, when the Goy is nana from it, then that shows that the Goy becomes the Iker, even over Rov Yisrael. So Kol Sheken, if it's L'Sarach Shneim, that's the way they learn. The Magen Avram might say back, what do you mean? Even if it's Rov Yisrael, if the Goy shows that he doesn't care there's Rov Yisrael, it's all for me. It's all for me, myself, and I. So then I don't care there's Rov Yisrael there. It's not really for them at all. But they're learning out that way. They're learning when there's Rov Yisrael, for sure that's also for the sake of Yisrael. And even so, it's mutter when there's a chacha that the Goy wants himself to be nana from it. So they're docha the Magen Avram, and that's what the Bir Halacha himself's docha, that raya against them. He says that by Rov, there's no achacha that he did it for them. It's just a mistama like that. Like when a Goy comes and lights, there's a room, 100 people in the room, there's 70 Jews and 30 Goyim, mistama, he did it for the sake of the Rov. It's not a raya for them, it's just a stama. And against the stama, it helps the hachra when he's mochiach that he really did it for himself. Masha'enken, if you know that it remains even after the chacha, even after the Goy is nana, so you have a clear reason to know that it's for the sake of the Israel, like the Jews are paying him something for it, whatever, or he has a reason. We have some other reason to know that it's for the sake of the Israel, then Magen Avram will hold that it's not a raya from Rov. And for Keret, the Magen Avram has a raya. There's the Yerushalmi. If you can see inside, the Bir Halacha inside, if you haven't already, that he brings down the Yerushalmi. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, but there's the Rabbi Yonah and the Yerushalmi that was, and the way he brought down the Maisa, similar to the Maisa of Shmuel, when the Goy lit the thing, it was clearly all for the sake of both of them, and still it was mutter. So according to the Yerushalmi, L'Tzorach Shnehem, L'Tzorach Goy and Yisrael, as long as the Goy is the Iker, then it's still mutter. According to the, I'm sorry, the other way around. Magen Avram is a raya that it's Aser. Rabbi Yonah Aser it over there. So when it's L'Tzarech Shneim, then it's Taka Aser. That's the Magen Avram. And he says that the Chumrah of the Smag is the one that holds that, like the second Lashon of Rashi, the Smag holds that when it's Mechza, that it's for both of them. So then, this is also Doch. The Bir Halacha says this is Docha the Raya of the Aruch HaShulchan, and those that say against the Magen Avram that there's a chiluk between here and Tafkuf Tes Vav. We said before, in Tafkuf Tes Vav, you can't be arrived from here. Over there, it's talking about Peros, it could be Marbe B'Shulo. So you bring more from the fact that there's a Jew, you bring more. Mashen can ner that's ner lecha ner lamea. So we're docha that raya, that kasha, because the Yerushalmi is talking about ner. Even so, Rabbi Yonah, when he knew it was Latzarach Shneim, Latzarach the Goy and Latzarach Yisrael, still said it was Asr. When it's Lazeh or Lazeh, it's Asr, even though it's just near, there's no Shakas of a Ribui. So Magen Avraham is going like the Yerushalmi, and that's why he says that. But the Bir Halacha ends off, though, that all that I said is to answer the kashas on the Magen Avraham, but the Maisa, the Rashba says in Shuvas that we're docha the Yerushalmi, we don't go with that Yerushalmi. And the Rashba is the Babali's Cholak and the Yerushalmi. In our case, our Gemara, the Maisa of Shmuel is a case where it was Latzarech Shnehem, and even so, when Shmuel saw that the Goy is being nana from it, then he was matir. So the Bir Halacha says, then you definitely have who to rely on. We have the Rashba and many others, and all those other Achronim that he quoted before. Among them will be the Aruch HaShulchan. He doesn't quote because they're contemporaries, but by us, the Aruch HaShulchan is a major posek. So with the Chayoram and others that are cholik on the Magen Avraham, when they hold that when it's Lasarach Shnehem, when the Goy is nana from it, then it's mutter. So you definitely have who to rely upon if they. That's why he quoted the Magen Avraham in the Mishnah Berurah, but he said I'm Bir Halacha because it's not so clear because there's many achronim to rely on when it's Lasarach Shnehem. So this could be a very common case where, I mean, you can think of different cases that could come up in the Shabbaton or whatever, that when they have to find a way that the Goy should be nana, then, so there it's going to become more difficult because like the Goy comes in, he's lighting something just purely for the sake of the Jews. So you're not going to really have a case of the Sarach Shneim over there so much. Unless you have some clear riot that the Goy is mainly mechaber for himself, it's going to be more difficult to find that. For that, we're going to have to be somewhat probably in other sources. We'll see at the end of the siman, the tzarach mitzvah. We'll get to the mitzvah Hashem in the end of the siman. When it's the tzarach rabim, the tzarach mitzvah, etc. We'll see the Ramah from the Trumas edition. But the case of tzarach shneim, where you really have a room of 50-50, it might be more possible, like in a hotel situation, when you have, let's say, you have a hotel that has Goyim and Jews and they're in a room and the light has to go on, or let's say they plug in a hot water urn for coffee or whatever for Goyim and Jews, and the guy who plugged it in also has a drink of something, whatever. Like those kind of situations where you might actually find a shiloh of Letzar Shneim. The usual case of a Jewish house or a Shabbaton or whatever. When it's all Jews, then it's going to be hard to find it's a case of the Tzarach Shneim. So it's going to be more of a stretch to say such a thing. Okay, let's go on to Sif Gimel. This halacha is not a Gemara. It's really based on Rishonim. The Torah says, Sif Gimel, Amar the Avdo, the Shivchaso, Leilach Imo, the Jew, let's say the wine is in a dark room, or you want the schnapps and it's in a dark cellar, you want to get it out. So you tell the Eved of the Shif to go with you. The Likuas Aner, they lit a nair to go down there because it's dark down there. If you turn on a flashlight, went down there. Alpi Shagam Him Tzrichim Loi. Even though right now the Goy needs the flashlight to see his way down to the cellar with you, Ein Zeh L'Tzarach Goy. You can't say that's the Tzarach the Goy. The Goy he didn't need to go down to the cellar. You need to go to the cellar. So you ask the Goy to go with you because you know he's going to turn a flashlight on or turn the light on down there. Here, the whole reason he's going is to take Israel. In the case of the Aruch HaShulchan, Bialduso, when they would invite the Goy in to have some schnapps. So the whole reason the Goy came in was to have his schnapps, and if it's dark, he can't get it, so he's lighting it for himself. Here he's going down to the cellar purely for the sake of the Jew. Unless you invite the Goy to have some schnapps, whatever. Maybe there's a way out of that. But in general, he's a worker. He's not drinking. He's driving home soon. He's not drinking anything. After he gets your schnapps, he's going home. So his whole halicha down there is for you. He's turned the flesh off for you. Then we say that it's usher, because the whole halicha is Tzorach Yisrael. So the fact that he's nena from it by seeing right now still keeps it the Tzorach Yisrael. It doesn't become Tzorach Akim. The Yisrael can't be nena from that light. So now, there's a few points here. First of all, the Beis Yosef brings that Rabbeinu Tam was matter if the whole reason we're asking over here is only because of hadlaka. The Jew can't be nena because there's hadlaka going on. So he was over Nissa Deraisa of hadlaka, of lighting this flashlight or fire or whatever, the candle, for the sake of the Israel, can't be nena from it. Masha Enkin says the Rabbeinu Tam that if it's only tiltal muktzah, like there's already a lamp lit that you can carry down there. So now the guy just takes the lamp to take it down there. He's not lighting anything. So all there is tiltal muktzah. Since there is a heter for a Jew himself of tiltal muktzah by tiltal minatzad, there are ways that a Jew could also do it. So then it's not usher to be nena from that, seeing from that light. That's the Ramah brings down. One Sif Gimel. Haga mutar lomer la'akum leilach imo editol ner doluk for a whole of eno oise rak tiltal laner ba'alma. And that's Ben Yerucham, etc. But it's a shame for Ben Tam. So now there's a few points about this. We'll have to discuss that. Magen Avram brings down in the name of the Sefer Zachronos. Magen Avram in Yud says that you can't be. This is only by a ner shel shaiva. First of all, it's only for Bnei Torah. They shouldn't be mekel more than they should be in this case. You have to have a Jew that knows what he's doing with this. They shouldn't be mekel in general. He understands the chiluk between lighting a fire and tiltal muktzah. At least that much of a Talmid Chacham of Ben Torah. Okay. Then he goes on to say, but ner shel shemen and the hakal klal the bakal niskarav hashemen of mitzrachek yesh bo chash iser Torah. When they used to have their ner shel shemen, so then when you carry those ner shel shemen, then the oil goes back and forth, and by having less shemen, more shemen, it causes the fire to burn up higher or lower, or go lower. So then that's carved to be an Issa Deraisa. So there wouldn't be a heter by Ner Shel Shemen. So as a Magen Avram, but Poskim Mashma Deshari. The Akol Al Kasam Haisa B'Shemen. Magen Avram says two tainas. Number one, the Stam Ner B'Zman Chazal and B'Zman the Rishonim was Ner Shel Shemen. They didn't walk around with Ner Shaiva was like our candles were rare in those days. Stam Ner meant Ner Shel Shemen. And even so, Rabbeinu Tam was matir. So if he wasn't machalik, if he's matir, he must be matir even by ner shel shemen. V'oid davar she'emes kavenu k'mashakasa reish ayin zayin v'ayin sof simin reish nun gimel. So here the Magen Avram is addressing the kasha. So what about the kasha of the Sefer Zachronos? How can you be matir ner shel shemen if there might be an issa deraisa? Okay, fine. I understand. Stam neros are Ner Shel Shemen, but the Sefer Zachronos had a good kasha. We're only matir tiltal muktzah, which is drabanan, and there's ways the Jew could do it. There's no way a Jew could carry Ner Shel Shemen. No, and even tiltal minatzad, if he's going to be an orisa deraisa, you can't do it. So then, how do you answer the kasha of the Sefer Zachronos? So the Magen Avram is answering that it's davar she'emes kaven. The goy doesn't have kavana for that right now. He just has kavana to carry the ner, just to carry it to light up down. He doesn't kavanah to light it stronger or weaker or do more havara. He has no kavanah for that. Like the beginning of Reish Ayin Zayin, he says, Ayin so sim Reish Nun Gimel. I'll just tell you, just a klal and Magen Avram. Learning a Magen Avram, sometimes you learn a certain svarim, and at the end they say Ayin here, Ayin there. You're not, if you're not so interested, you just don't look it up. Learning a Magen Avram, part of the ikr, this I learned from Shlomo Zalman Zatzal, that part of the ikr of learning a Magen Avram is to learn his ayins. because he's Megala, he really is Megala, his Iker Kavana many times through the ayin here and ayin there. I saw this many times, like in Yom Tov Sheni, Shlomo Zalman would sometimes when he would go through in Magia, I would give him back what he said, and he'd look it over, and he would, sometimes Magia have a lot of his notes from that. He would say, "I am Magen Avram," this or that, and he would look up the Magen Avram, nothing doing, no shaykhus. So, like, what did he bring that down for? But then I would learn a little more deeply and learn what the Magen Avram brings down the ayin here, ayin there, and I see the whole big picture would open up, and that's what Rosh Hashanah meant. He was a Baki not only Magen Avram, but he was a Baki in the ayin sham of the Magen Avrams, which he taught me. That's really a lot of times the Iker Kavanah and Magen Avram is ayin here and there. So in this case, is ayin sof simulation and gimel that the Vushei Srad and others explain over here. He means to say that in the end of Rishon and Gimel, that he's really coming to answer a kasha. That to say over here, the Magen Avram is addressing the kasha of Sefer Zechronos. How can the goy carry it? Even till Muksa, it's going to be Havara, it's going to be Nissa Derais, so you're going to cause more the Shemin to go up and down. So the answer is Tzar Shem Niskaven. But it should be a Psik Reisha. Shemin always moves. So Davar Shem Niskaven is Asar by Psik Reisha. Psik Reisha, it means it's absolutely going to happen. So there's no heter of Davar Shem Niskaven by Psik Reisha. And over here, there's makom to say it's Psik Reisha than Nichale, because sometimes it'll light better, it'll get lighter. It's a Psik Reisha that will be Asar include on. So the Magen Avram answers ayin sof simulation of Gimel. Over there, the case was in Rishon Gimel, which we'll see that at some point, probably maybe to the end of the Simon over here. Hopefully, have time. That the case over there was there's a heter for a goy to light a taner beis hacharef. It's in the winter, it's cold in the house, and they had a type of a heating oven that would heat up the house. It was like that was their form of heater. But there was, even though it was not generally a place for cooking, but you had some already cooked food that cooled down, and to cook it now it could be Nissa Derais, so there's liquid in there. So there are Ramal Paskins that the goy, the minig is that the goy, before he lights the taner beis hacharef, you're allowed to put that cold food that you like to have hot onto that taner beis hacharef. Now when the goy lights the taner beis hacharef beheter, because there's kids in the house and everything, so it's like a tzara cholim, shem b'slakana, that he's allowed to heat the house on the winter. It's freezing winter in Europe. It would be really dangerous to not have the house heated up. So we're allowed to ask the goy to heat the house. And agav that he's lighting that taner, then that food is going to get heated up as well. It's on that taner beis hacharef. It's a psik reisha that's going to be heated up. You say he's not mechaben for that. He's mechaben just to heat up the house. That's Iker Kavanah the goy, but it's a psik reisha. So there, the Magen Avram at the end of Rishon and Gimel, Paskins, very important Magen Avram, that there's no Isser psik reisha by Amirah La'akum. Yisod Gadol and Magen Avram. And he says this as well in other places as well. There's another Magen Avram in Reish Ayin Zion, in the next Simon, that there the case was, if you forgot you left a nair on the table, and now you need the table someplace else. So there the Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to turn the table, and even though the nair is going to fall down, because you're as long as you don't have kavanah to have it go out. Magen Avram says it's better to do it ayde akum. In a place you don't have such a big need for it, better to do it ayde akum. And so Magen Avram asks over there in Sivkat and Zion, Reish Ayin Zion, yes. I feel Mishal Shemin Shari, Mashakasav Reish and Gimel. Why? The Psik Reisha Shari ayde akum. So there he again it says as you sowed, and it says this in a number of places. It says it also in Shin Yud Daled. There's a halacha of Shin Yud Daled is in Bona, Malacha Bona, So they were speaking about making if they have a barrel that let's see which cutting it is. Find that I'm going to run. Let's see, find them on the run right now. The case over there was also in Shinudala that you have a knife stuck into the barrel. You want to pull out the knife so you can get a flow of wine. But by pulling the knife out, if it's the first time it's ever being done, you didn't put it in and out like you should have before Shabbos. It'd be pulling out for the first time. When you pull it out the first time, then it's a psik reisha that you're going to be marchiv the chor. You're going to make the bigger hole. That'll be better for wine to come out. So there also the Magen Avraham says that you're allowed to do it ayde goy, because even though it's a psik reisha, his kavanah is just to take out the knife, not to make a chor. And again, it's psik reisha is mutar ayde akum. So this is so we see the Magen Avraham throughout Hilchos Shabbos, many places. The Mishnah Berurah passages like this also in many places. The Shmir Shabbos Kolchasa in the very beginning, in the note, it's can I look at in the note in the beginning, and the Ha'ara at the beginning of Perek Lamed Aleph and Amir al-Akum. So it brings down a whole list of Mishnah Berurahs and other Achronim that go with this Magen Avraham, with this Magen Avraham, that psik reisha is mutar ayde Amir al-Akum. So what the Magen Avraham here means to say, what he's saying over here, when he just says ayin sof sim rishon and gimel, he's alluding to this yisod that even though it's a psik reisha that you're going to burn up the shemen, then it's still mutar ayde akum, because again it's mutar psik reisha. It's mutar that psik reisha by Amir La'akum. I saw somebody asking a steer in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah over here says, he passes this Magen Avraham, but he says you should be ask the goy not to do it but merutza. When he goes with you, you shouldn't run. You shouldn't go so fast. So it's not such a psik reisha that that the shemen is going to swish back and forth. So I saw those that asked that if the Mishnah Berurah passes like the Magen Avraham in general, that there's no problem with psik reisha by Amir al-Akum, then what's the reason to tell him not to go fast? What is he worried about? Even if it's a psik reisha, it's still mutar. But I don't think it's such a kasha, because the lashon of Mishnah Berurah is just that it's nachon to lahasiro. It didn't say you have to. It's proper to. So here, since it really doesn't matter so much if he goes so fast or slow, so even though he's matir like Magen Avraham, whenever there's a case of need, you can be matir ayde akum. If there's no need whatsoever, then why have him do it? So it's proper just to minimize as much as possible, but not that it's really an isser. So a big many ramifications. We'll just speak out one nakuda here in this shaila. We'll just speak out one nakuda is that a very common shaila, that if you forgot your refrigerator, you forgot to unscrew the light in your refrigerator before Shabbos, and now you can't get your food out for the Shabbos meals. So also in the beginning of Perek Lamed Aleph, Shmir Shabbos Kolchasa speaks about this, that according to this yisod of the Magen Avraham, you're allowed to ask the goy to open the fridge to get out the food. It's a psik reisha that the light's going to go on. Psik reisha is mutar by Amir La'akum. Rav Moshe passes this also in the Tshuva. It's an Orach Chaim Beis Siman Samaches, that he compares this opening the fridge to the case of any other psik reisha is mutar according to Magen Avraham. The goy is not coming to turn the light on in the fridge. He's coming to take the food out, just to open the door and take the food out. It's going to be a light's going to for sure go on. Doesn't matter. So that's Rav Moshe's psak. Now Rav Shlomo Zalman, he brings down Rav Shlomo Zalman's that's always ma'or, that he was not so sure about this. This might be different because, since the only way to turn on not only the only way, but that's the normal way to turn this light on in the fridge is by opening the refrigerator door. Perhaps, Rishon Zalman says, perhaps this is not considered a case of a davar shein miskaven with a psik ratio. Davar shein miskaven means I'm doing something, I'm doing act A, and it's going to result in a result B, which is not my intention. It's not my intentional result, and it's not always going to be the case. If I let's say pull a chair along the ground, so not every time you pull a chair along the ground is it going to make a charitz. It's going to make a furrow. Right now, this chair, the chair you're pulling on is heavy and happens to be on a ground with no grass and it's dirt and it's a place where you plow. So in this case, it's soft earth. It's going to cause it. That's a psik ratio. Then it's totally it's nichalei, not nichalei. If it's psik ratio, even though it's davar shein miskaven, it's two things that are not normally one connected to each other, but it's going to happen. It's going to be psik ratio. Then it can be usher. Mashenken. So over here, it's not the two incidental things that are going on. That I'm opening a door and incidentally it's also going to turn a light on. Here, this is the way to turn the light on. This is the normal way. It's always going to happen that way because that's the way it's built. In other words, by the case of the Rishon and Gimel, the Tanur Beis HaChoref, it's not every time that you turn a Tanur Beis HaChoref on, you're going to cook food. It's a heater and it's not made for food, and every so often somebody might put food on there, but it's not. Right now, it's b'mikra, you have both together. There, it's shaykh to say it's a davar shein miskaven because it's not the way it's built. And now, if it's a psik ratio, we can say, okay, psik ratio, mutar ba'akum, whatever. Mashenken, by something which is built that way, Rishon Zalman says perhaps that's not called davar shein miskaven. And maybe that will be usher. Maybe that will not be in nichlal and the heter of there's no psik ratio by a goy because that's only when it's not a direct ma'isa, when it's not an all time, every time myself. Nevertheless, he's more noted to be makel to say it's mutter anyway because there's another way why it's not a psik ratio because theoretically the goy could unplug the refrigerator before he opens the door, so no light will go on. So maybe that will take away the psik ratio, but not the opening of the door. Ramosha didn't bring up this shaila, so we see that Ramosha, according to Ramosha, even when it's always going to be that way, as long as the psik ratio is a davar shein miskaven is then kavana, not necessarily in the ma'isa. If you don't have kavana for that, then it's still called davar shein miskaven, even though that's always the way it is. So Ramosha still held it was davar shein miskaven. This comes out to be it's a very fascinating machlokes between Rishon Zalman and Ramosha of what's the getter of davar shein miskaven, what's the havana of that, and nafkamina will be l'gabei this, whether it's be heter psik ratio for a goy or not, because is it called a direct ma'isa or is it called a ma'isa of davar shein miskaven? The halacha doesn't. I saw it brought down from Rishon Zalman. I'm not sure if it's totally true or not, but also B'Shem Rebbe Yashiv that they say because of this kasha of Rishon Zalman that it should only be mutter to ask the goy to open the refrigerator if he doesn't know there's a light that's going to go on. Otherwise, it might be considered a direct ma'isa. But Ramosha holds that it's mutter. They also say if you open it, then they should hint to the goy to unscrew the light, so you should be able to get out, further. What I call the rest of the food. You can hint to him to do that because then it's the tzarech mitzvah. Okay, that's a separate discussion. Al kopanim, so our shiloh over here, it all starts from this Magen Avraham. It all starts from Magen Avraham by us and all these other places that if psik ratio is mutter by a goy, now you have to always look at the definition of a psik ratio. Okay. Just going on to one other point. We're running out of time here. We're already out of time, but I'll just we started a little bit late, so we'll try to finish this off. Magen Avraham and Yud Aleph says that it's mutter the tiltal and air because the goy also needs it. So he brings down the kasha, the shach. He says, "Kavanaso desham inu mater el mikoach tanai hakashari b'shu she'akun tzarechlo." He says, "Ayin siman reish ayin tes sof sif dalid." That in reish ayin tes sof sif dalid, it says over there that if you made a t'nai with on a nair, that when it goes out, you're going to be metaltal it, then you're allowed to metaltal it after it goes out. Right? You have a nair. The nair becomes a basis for the shalhevis, for the light. This oil light lamp becomes a basis for the nair. Benish Moshes was lit. Now it's a basis. Even when it goes out, it remains muktzah. But if you make it t'nai, then when it's out, you're going to use it, then it's okay. And the Ramaz Cholik, it says, Yesh Omrim Delo Mahani t'nai. Chen Noagim Medinas Elu. We don't move it even after it goes out. T'nai doesn't help. But he says, the Ramah ends off, and Noagim L'taltal Aydi Akum. Emezim Mishum Isra Amir La'akum. Hov Aminekach. Havekilu Hishna Olav Mitchila B'Shari. So the t'nai helps, even though we're not going to use it for tiltal of a Jew, but we'll allow the t'nai ayday tiltal of an akum, of a goy. So the t'nai helps for a mir la'akum. So we're going to run. It brings from the shach that it alludes to a kasha that over there it only helps with a t'nai. Over here we're saying that here not only is there not a t'nai, you're asking the goy to move it while it's still lit. So it seems to be a stira. Over there, the Ramal said that we're only allowed the goy to move with the t'nai once it goes out. Here there's no t'nai, and the goy is moving it while it's still lit, because we're saying it's l'tzarech akum. You're asking the goy to do it. So he says the Maggid says kavanasa the sham inu matir elam mikach t'nai v'hocha shari mishum shekama akum tzarech lo. That's the kasha of the shach. So but the Magen Ram says, "Abal Agos Maimeras Kasav Zel Shaner Ben Etam Hitchelo LaAkum Lomer LaAkum Tavi Ner Doluk Tiltal Laner in Aser Elimishim to have a Muktzah V'Shari B'Tiltal Min Atzad." We came to Iboy Yisrael Metaltal Beheter Oshaka Leislan Ba. Also Shad Lekenu Akum. So now the Magen Ram is Cholok on him. Here he says that it's mashma, that it's mutter, not because the goy needs it. The shach answer is, over there the goy doesn't need it. That's why you need it tonight. Here it's considered the tzarech akum himself, and that's why it's mutter even without it tonight. On that the Magen Ram Tainus, what do you mean? The whole reason we said over here that it's usher to begin with, why the goy, if the goy lit it, is because it's not the tzarech akum. Ikar halicha was for the sake of the Jew. It's not considered the tzarech akum over here. So the shach's teretz falls off. It's the tzarech of the Jew. Also the Taz also later on in Shin Ches in Hilchos Muktzah in Sivkat and Zion learns from here that tiltal muktzah is mutter ayadei goy b'chol inyan, even when it's not the tzarech of goy. So what's Taka the answer? So the Magen Ram answers that over there, the Magen Ram not here, but he alludes to over there in Reish Ayin Tes and Ois Tes that the chiluk is a different chiluk. Over here, and this is a chiluk in Hilchos Muktzah, that over here the ner is being taken the tzarach gufo. The ner itself is needed for itself, and the tzarach gufo, since there's a heter for a Jew, the tzarach gufo, if you do it tiltal min atzad, you do it in a strange way with your body or whatever, there's a heter for that. So then there's also a heter idea goy to do it lahedya. Mashenkin over Reish Ayin Tes over there, it was not for the tzarach of the ner itself. It wasn't. You didn't need the ner to light. It was for the good of the ner, that it shouldn't get burnt up or get ruined. That's not called a tzarach gufo. That's just for the sake of the ner. For there's no heter at all unless there's a tanai. So that's the teretz. But the Maisa, we do see over here. Then it comes out a tremendous chiddush, a tremendous heter that you can ask a goy to do tiltal muktzah whenever the tzarach gufam komo, for example, to light up something for you, you're allowed to tiltal muktzah, even though it's gonna might light the ner more, because that's the other Magen Ram, because it's no problem of psik reisha by a goy, and even without a Tanai, it's mutter over here because it's called Tzara Gufo. So these are big kulas in Hilchos Amira L'Akum. Last kuda that the Mishnah Berurah points out, interesting, we'll end with this, that what it says here in Halacha that Asr Leilach Imo, the Shulchan Aruch said that if a goy lit the fire, you can't go with him, and because you're going to be nana from that. The Mishnah Berurah says, we see it in the Shulchan Aruch, it's only Leilach Imo that it's Asr. If I ask the goy to go down to the cellar and get the wine for me, and it's dark down there, and he lights it, and I don't go with him, and he lights a candle for himself to go down there, then that's okay. Because I'm not being nana from the goof of when he lit it now. If I went with him and it's really mainly for me, then I can't be nana from that. But if the goy did it he went himself down there, even though he's going for me. But right now, he has trouble going by himself, and he needs a light lit. Then that's okay. And therefore, from there we learn out, let's say, certain nafkaminas, such as if a goy is like, you ask the goy is washing dishes for you, to wash the dishes. So it's going to be, Shlomo Zalman says, from here we see that if the goy washes the dishes with hot water, so now it depends why the hot water is on. If the hot water is, they put on hot water to wash the dishes, because that's the only way to get the fat and everything off of it with hot water, and then you're going to use those dishes afterwards. So then that becomes usher. Because even though the goy, you're not there while the goy does it doesn't matter. Unless you're being nene from with the goy boiled hot water or turn the hot water heater on by turning on the hot water on the faucet. Masha'enken, if the goy did it just because it's more pleasant to wash dishes with hot water so her hands won't get cold, so that's considered the sarach atzma. That would be similar to the goy going down herself to get the thing that, you're not being nana directly from that or anymore. You're just nana from the totzah of it, and so then that's going to be okay. So you have to look at what's going on, what's the real tzarach of it is. Okay, there's a little more to talk about, but I guess we'll end it here.
Rabbi, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Shem will try to finish off this week.
Sure. Thank you, Shabbos.
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 Shabbos.